You know, it is so tempting when you look at a puppy, especially one as ridiculously cute as a Cocker Spaniel, to just see a miniature adult dog.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we tend to look at those floppy ears and those oversized paws and just think, well, the personality is already locked in, the software is installed.
Right, right. Like they're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. And now, growing up is just a matter of scaling up the hardware, right? Just expanding the body size, adding some volume to the bark, and boom, you have a dog.
It would be incredibly convenient if they just came out of the box fully programmed like that. I mean, really convenient.
Yeah, right.
But if we look at the research we're diving into today, which focuses really heavily on the behavioral and physical development of sensitive breeds, like the Cocker Spaniel, that assumption couldn't be further from the truth.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, their brain architecture is it's still actively being built.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sources we're looking at for this deep dive really challenge that whole miniature adult idea.
They really do.
We're looking at a pretty complete breakdown of a puppy's first few months. And I guess our mission today is to figure out what you, as an owner, are genuinely responsible for shaping.
Yeah.
Because apparently those early days literally write the code for the dog's lifelong confidence, their emotional stability, their independence.
It's high stakes. It really is.
So if they aren't a finished product, what exactly are you working with on day one?
Well, you're working with a neurological system that is under rapid construction. I mean, in those first few weeks of life, a puppy is almost entirely dependent on its mother.
Like completely helpless.
Pretty much. They have zero functional vision and zero functional hearing.
Wow.
Yeah, they navigate purely by warmth and smell. But right around the 3 to 4 week mark, this massive biological switch flips. The eyes open, the ears turn on, and behaviorists call this the opening of the socialization window.
The socialization window.
Exactly. And the most critical thing for you to understand here is that this window, it stays open only until they are about 12 to 16 weeks old.
Wait, 12 to 16 weeks?
Yeah.
That is a tiny window to figure out the entirety of planet Earth.
It's a massive biological rush. Like, during this specific time frame, a puppy's brain is just hyper-receptive.
Okay.
Neurologically speaking, their brains are making millions of synaptic connections every single day.
Millions.
Millions. So if they encounter something new and they encounter it calmly, their brain literally wires that experience into a category called normal. It just becomes part of the permanent furniture of their life,
It kind of makes me think of pouring wet cement.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like during this window, the puppy's brain is just freshly poured wet cement. Everything that steps on it leaves a permanent imprint.
Yes, exactly.
But eventually that cement dries.
Yeah.
And if you didn't smooth out the surface while you had the chance, you're basically stuck with the bumps.
You really are.
But what strikes me is the split responsibility here, because, you usually don't even bring a puppy home until week 8.
Right. And that split timeline is vital to recognize. The breeder basically manages the first half of this window.
Okay.
But you inherit the back half. And that back half, from 8 weeks to 16 weeks, is arguably the most demanding.
Because you're the one taking them out into the real world.
Exactly. That is when you are taking this puppy out of the familiar whelping box and just plunging them into the broader human world.
And if you miss exposing them to everyday things during those specific weeks, it doesn't just result in a slightly shy dog, right? Like, the sources emphasize that the absence of exposure can become a permanent source of fear.
Yeah, it is quite serious.
The brain just closes the window and decides that anything unknown is inherently dangerous, even if nothing traumatic ever actually happened to them.
That's the real tragedy of under-socialization. The brain undergoes this process called synaptic pruning.
Synaptic pruning.
Right, so if neural pathways for handling novelty aren't built and utilized during this window, the brain simply prunes away the ability to easily accept new things.
Oh, wow. So they just lose the capacity for it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
You end up with a dog that is terrified of, say, a vacuum cleaner or a stranger in a hat for the rest of its life, purely because they didn't see one before week 16.
That makes the stakes feel incredibly high for you as a new owner. Like, if the window is closing, the natural human instinct is to cram in as much as possible, right?
Kind of panic sets in.
Yeah. Because when people hear the word socialization, I think most of us picture, like, a puppy party.
Oh, absolutely.
Just 50 dogs, kids running around, total chaos, getting them used to everything all at once, just throwing them into the deep end of the pool.
Right, but what's fascinating here is that the biology actually dictates the exact opposite.
Wait, really?
Yeah, flooding a young nervous system with novelty causes a massive stress response.
Oh, I see.
When stress hormones flood the brain, it actually shuts down the very learning pathways you are trying to open.
So it completely backfires.
It completely backfires. Good socialization is quiet, it's deeply intentional, and it's administered in small, manageable doses.
So it isn't about overwhelming them with crowds. It's more about granular sensory things.
Yes, it is walking on different textures, grass, pavement, gravel.
Okay.
It is hearing distant traffic sounds, or maybe a blender in the kitchen from another room. It's the gentle handling of their paws and ears.
Just normal everyday stuff.
Exactly. Because the biological goal is to teach the nervous system that new equals fine, not new equals an overwhelming threat.
And this is where the breed specifics in our sources really stand out to me because, I mean, all puppies are sensitive, but Cocker Spaniels are genetically wired for high emotional attunement.
They absolutely are.
And that's the trait that makes them those beautifully affectionate, Velcro-like adult dogs. But it sounds like a double-edged sword during this window.
It is a profound vulnerability, honestly.
Oh.
A more stoic, thick-skinned breed, say, a typical Labrador, might get startled by a dropping pan, shake it off, and forget it seconds later.
Because they're just built differently.
Right? Their cortisol levels, their stress hormones, they spike and drop relatively quickly. But for a Cocker Spaniel, because of that deep emotional attunement, their cortisol takes much longer to dissipate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a startling event leaves a much deeper neurological footprint.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because if I am walking a Cocker Spaniel puppy and, say, a truck backfires and the puppy jumps and cowers, my immediate visceral human instinct is to swoop in.
Of course it is.
I want to scoop them up, hold them tight, and be like, oh my gosh, you poor baby, it's okay, I've got you.
I mean, ignoring them in that moment feels incredibly cold.
I know.
Are you saying that withholding comfort damages their trust, or what is the right move there?
Well, that is such a common conflict between human empathy and canine psychology. We think we're soothing them, but we have to look at how a dog processes leadership and safety.
Okay.
When that truck backfires, the puppy is looking directly to you to interpret the event.
To see how I react. Exactly. If you suddenly gasped, scoop them up, and start speaking in this high, frantic, emotional voice, you are confirming their fear.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Your elevated heart rate and tense body language tell them, yes, that noise was incredibly dangerous and we are both in peril.
So my attempt to comfort them is actually validating the panic. I'm literally telling the wet cement to keep the footprint.
That is exactly what you're doing. It reinforces the exact neural pathway you are trying to avoid.
So what should I do instead?
You must model calm, neutral confidence.
Neutral confidence.
Right. If the truck backfires, you stay relaxed. Your body language remains loose. You can give a cheerful, quiet, it's okay, but you project absolute neutrality.
So I don't ignore them, I just act like it's no big deal.
Exactly. By not reacting, you demonstrate to their highly observant brain that the loud noise is a non-event. And that is how you build a resilient nervous system in a sensitive breed.
Okay, so you are carefully exposing them to the world, projecting this total calm. But, they aren't just passively watching things, they're actively engaging.
Right.
And because they don't have hands, they explore the world with their mouths. Which brings us to a phase that makes a lot of new owners think they've adopted a tiny predator.
Ah, yes.
The piranha phase. It causes so much unnecessary distress.
I can imagine.
You feel those needle-sharp puppy teeth on your hand or your ankle, and the immediate fear is, oh no, I have an aggressive dog.
Right. But it has zero to do with malice.
Zero. It is purely developmental exploration.
Kind of like a human toddler reaching out to grab everything to see what it feels like. Puppies just happen to use their mouths.
Exactly.
Plus, the sources point out they are actively teething. I mean, their gums are inflamed, and chewing provides genuine physiological relief.
It is a biological necessity for them. So the goal is not to punish them for doing something completely natural.
Okay.
The goal is to teach what behaviorists call bite inhibition.
Which means teaching the puppy that human skin is fragile, unlike their littermate's thick fur. Right?
Right.
But how do they naturally learn this if, we aren't around? They learn it from their littermates. If a puppy bites a sibling too hard during play, the sibling yelps and completely stops playing.
The game just ends.
The game ends. The puppy quickly learns that hard bites make the fun stop. As an owner, you basically have to mimic that dynamic.
I'll admit, when a puppy bites hard, the human instinct is to yell no, or to physically push them away.
Which is highly risky with a sensitive breed like a Cocker Spaniel.
Really?
Yes. If you react to a nip with physical punishment, or even by yelling with intense vocal frustration, you aren't teaching bite inhibition.
What are you teaching them then?
You're teaching the dog to be wary of human hands altogether.
Oh,
You run the risk of creating a dog that actually flinches when you reach out to pet them.
which totally defeats the whole purpose of getting an affectionate breed.
Exactly.
So instead of scolding, you just redirect. You calmly withdraw your attention, basically mimicking the littermate walking away, or you gently swap your hand for an appropriate chew toy.
Yep. Make biting the toy rewarding and biting the hand incredibly boring.
Boring. That makes sense. But something else in the research really caught my attention here because it explains why the biting sometimes gets completely out of control. Sleep. Specifically, sleep deficits.
Oh, yes. People drastically underestimate a puppy's sleep requirements.
Drastically.
The biological need for a growing puppy is 18 to 20 hours of sleep a day.
18 to 20 hours, that leaves almost no time awake.
Barely any.
See, I always assumed that if a puppy is zooming around the living room, they must have energy to burn. You're supposed to let them play until they drop.
That is a very dangerous trap.
Really?
Yeah. Puppies lack the neurological maturity to self-regulate. They just don't know how to power down.
Okay.
When they stay awake too long, their brain gets flooded with adrenaline and cortisol just to keep them going. They become hyper-aroused.
It is exactly like a human toddler who skipped their afternoon nap. Like, they don't look sleepy, they look possessed. They are crying, throwing things, acting completely irrational. So when your puppy turns into a relentless biting machine in the evening, it's likely not a training failure, it's just neurological exhaustion.
That's spot on, and this requires a major shift in how you view your role. Managing sleep and biting isn't about asserting dominance or being the alpha.
Right, the alpha myth.
Right? It's
Yep.
about acting as the puppy's prefrontal cortex. You have to step in and enforce the quiet rest that their rapidly developing brain desperately needs, but just cannot initiate on its own.
That makes perfect sense. Your role is managing their physical needs, which, naturally sets the stage for how you manage household boundaries.
Absolutely.
Because managing naps and physical impulses translates directly to teaching them the rules of the house. Now, the sources say training starts on day one, the literal day you bring them home.
It does.
And honestly, that sounds exhausting if you're picturing formal obedience classes.
Well, training is simply establishing a language of communication. It's not marching around a ring in a show.
Right.
On day one, you are laying basic groundwork. You're teaching them their name. You are rewarding them when they choose to sit quietly instead of jumping on your leg.
And the method of teaching is critical here. Positive reinforcement using treats, praise, toys is non-negotiable for Cocker Spaniel.
Non-negotiable.
But I want to dig into why. Because old school training relied a lot on physical corrections or dominance. Why does that fail so badly with this specific breed?
It comes back to how a stressed brain functions.
Yeah.
When you use harsh physical corrections or even a booming, angry voice with an emotionally attuned dog, their amygdala, the fear center of the brain, just takes over.
Okay.
And when the amygdala is highly active, it physically blocks the neural pathways required for learning and memory formation.
Wow, so they literally can't learn.
Exactly. A terrified dog cannot process a new command. They just shut down. Positive reinforcement keeps the brain in a relaxed, receptive state, leveraging their genetic eagerness to work with you.
So if you are a new owner and you're dealing with the most notoriously frustrating part of puppyhood house training, you really have to keep that biology in mind.
Oh, definitely.
Because expecting a fully potty-trained dog in 3 weeks is just a setup for failure. How do we reset those expectations? I hear people say all the time, he knew he wasn't supposed to pee on the rug, he looked right at me and did it to spite me.
That is projecting complex human spite onto very basic canine anatomy.
Right.
A young puppy physically lacks full control over their bladder and bowel sphincter muscles.
It's just physical limitation.
Yes. Furthermore, the neurological connection between the bladder feeling full and the brain saying hold it simply hasn't developed yet. They often don't even know they have to go until the very second it happens.
So it's anatomy, not attitude.
Exactly.
The sources point out that full reliability takes several months of extreme consistency. And I guess this is where crate training is such a powerful tool.
Absolutely. Crate training, when introduced positively, taps into a wolf-like evolutionary instinct.
The den instinct.
Right, the desire not to soil the small den where they sleep. But it also solves the sleep deficit issue we just discussed.
Oh, tying it back to the naps.
Exactly. A covered crate acts as a low-stimulation environment. It forces the hyper-aroused puppy brain to finally power down and get those 18 hours without being distracted by everything happening in the living room.
So you've mastered the indoors, you've got a crate routine, the enforced naps are happening, you're using positive reinforcement, but your puppy's confidence is growing, and naturally they want to explore beyond the front door.
Naturally.
Which throws you right into a massive, highly stressful conflict in the source material, the medical catch-22.
It really is one of the hardest things for you to navigate as an owner.
I bet.
We established earlier that the critical socialization window closes around 16 weeks. However, a puppy typically does not receive their final round of core vaccinations, providing full immune protection against deadly viruses like parvovirus until that exact same time.
Right. So your vet is telling you, keep this puppy away from the ground until 16 weeks because parvovirus can live in soil for years and it is fatal.
Right.
But behavioral science is screaming, if you isolate this puppy indoors until 16 weeks, they will be irreparably fearful for the rest of their life.
It's a nightmare for a new owner.
How do you possibly resolve that? It feels like choosing between physical survival and psychological survival.
You navigate it through what behaviorists call managed exposure. You thread the needle.
Thread the needle. How?
Well, you don't isolate them in the house, but you also don't drop them in a high-traffic dog park.
Right.
You put them in a carrier or you hold them in your arms and you walk through a busy hardware store or a regular park.
Oh, I see.
Their paws never touch potentially contaminated ground, but their brain gets to process the sights, the sounds, the strange people.
You are getting the vital neurological exposure without taking the biological risk.
Right.
And speaking of biology in the outdoors, let's talk about physical exercise. Because Cocker Spaniels are sporting dogs. As adults, they have incredible stamina.
They do?
So if you have a hyper puppy, the logical human solution is, I'm going to take this dog for a 2-mile jog to tire him out so I can finally have some peace. Wait, people run their puppies to exhaust them so they'll sleep. Are you saying trying to tire out a puppy with a long run could actually physically damage them?
Applying that human logic to a puppy can cause permanent physical damage.
Really?
Yes. A puppy's skeletal structure is fundamentally different from an adult dog's. Their bones haven't fused yet.
Okay.
They have growth plates at the ends of their bones, which are areas of soft, cartilaginous tissue dividing rapidly to allow for growth.
Oh, wow. So they aren't just small bones. They are physically fragile, unfinished bones.
They are incredibly vulnerable. Repetitive, high-impact exercise like forcing them to keep up on a long jog on hard concrete or having them jump aggressively to catch a frisbee can compress or permanently fracture those soft growth plates.
Oh, my goodness.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it can lead to angular limb deformities where the bone actually grows crooked, or it can cause early-onset arthritis, affecting their lifelong mobility.
That completely flips the script. You think you're being a good owner by exhausting them, not realizing you're potentially ruining their joints for life?
It happens all the time.
So how much exercise do they actually need?
Keep it short, frequent, and entirely puppy-driven.
Puppy-driven.
Let them romp in the grass. Let them explore at their own pace. When they plop down in the shade because they were tired, the session is over. Their own fatigue is the safety valve for their joints.
And while they are out there exploring at their own pace, I guess that's your golden opportunity to start leash and recall training.
Yes, definitely.
The sources say to build this habit early, starting indoors first with zero pressure, using a happy tone. You're building that invisible tether while they still naturally want to stick close to you, long before they turn into rebellious teenagers who suddenly realize squirrels exist.
That invisible tether is vital. But we have to look at the other side of that coin.
Which is?
For a Cocker Spaniel, the ultimate test of emotional stability isn't just listening to you when you're there. It is how their nervous system handles it when you are completely gone.
Ah, separation anxiety. The sources flag this as a huge long-term hurdle. These are colloquial Velcro dogs, right?
Very much so.
They were bred for generations to work in close tandem with a human hunter. They bond intensely, so they're genetically predisposed to panic when their human disappears.
They are. And this is where well-meaning owners often set a psychological trap for themselves.
So if a listener is taking time off work to be with a new puppy, spending 24/7 with them is actually setting a trap for themselves later.
Without a doubt. Say you take 2 weeks off work to settle your new puppy in. If you spend 247 with them sleeping next to their crate, carrying them around, letting them follow you into the bathroom. And then on day 15, you lock the door and leave for an 8-hour workday.
Oh, boy.
The dog will experience a massive cortisol spike. It is profound psychological trauma.
Because they literally have no context for being alone. You have taught them that existence means being within 5 feet of you at all times.
Exactly. They have built no internal coping mechanisms for isolation. To avoid this trap, you must understand that practicing absence is just as critical as practicing presence.
Practicing absence.
You have to systematically prove to their nervous system that isolation is safe and, most importantly, temporary.
So you start small, putting them in their safe space with a high-value chew toy, stepping into the hallway for 60 seconds and coming right back in.
Yes.
No drama, no big emotional reunions. And then maybe the next day, you check the mail for 3 minutes. You are slowly expanding their tolerance window.
You are incrementally stretching that window, proving that you always return until an 8-hour workday is just another boring, predictable part of their routine.
And you really need patience for all of this because the sources burst one final major bubble for us. Cocker Spaniels do not magically mature to calm, wise adults on their first birthday.
Not at all.
They retain that puppy mindset, that sporting breed energy well into their second year.
It takes a full 2 years for the brain to finish baking, so to speak. Understanding that biological timeline prevents you from getting frustrated and thinking your dog is broken at 14 months.
They're just still maturing.
Exactly.
The wet cement is still curing. Well, okay, this has been a fascinating look under the hood of puppy development. The overarching theme for you as an owner is that early intentional investment pays off forever.
It really does.
The sensitive nature of a Cocker Spaniel means you have to be deliberate. You're providing calm, managed exposure during that critical socialization window. You're leaning entirely on positive reinforcement because stress blocks their ability to learn.
Yep.
You are acting as their prefrontal cortex, enforcing sleep so they don't turn into overtired biters, and you're actively practicing absence to build an emotionally secure adult. I mean, it is a massive undertaking, but that exact same sensitivity that makes their puppyhood so demanding is what makes the adult Cocker Spaniel so beautifully, deeply attuned to you.
It is a remarkable transformation when done right. And, there is a thought I'd love for you to carry with you after we wrap up today.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Think about the adult dogs. Maybe your own dog or a friend's dog who have strange, unexplainable behavioral quirks. The dog that is terrified of men in hats, or the dog that paces frantically when left alone.
Sure.
We usually just shrug and chalk it up to, well, that's just their personality. But based on the developmental biology we unpacked today, it makes you wonder, is it really their innate personality? Or are we just looking at a fossilized memory?
Yeah.
Are we witnessing the permanent neurological scar of a single missed exposure or an owner's accidental overreaction during week 10 of their life? It really begs the question of how much of any creature's character is simply a reflection of their first 100 days on Earth.
A fossilized memory of week 10. That completely changes how you look at every single dog you meet. The physical hardware might grow, but that early software runs forever. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the surface, and we will catch you on the next one.